Now, SVP and Russillo on ESPN Radio.
And ESPNRadio.com.
Hey, it's SVP and Russillo. Here's what's in the podcast. Tiger Woods walks off. Are his peers saying he's done? Steve Sands from the Golf Channel on that. Chris Paul had mean comments about an official who's a woman. If it was a guy, would anyone care? Shane Vareen of the Patriots tells us just how great it is to win a Super Bowl and whether he has any sympathy for the guys he beat. Is Derrick Rose really not one of the 60 best or most valuable players? Ryen Russillo explains why Bill Simmons suggests perhaps. And my one big thing on the one guy who's capable of filling the shoes of the best guy in our business. Podcast starts now.
SVP and Russillo.
Going back to January of 2014, Tigers started 9 times in a golf tournament. 9 times. He's only finished 2 of them. Withdrew from 3, missed the cut in 3, and this is a spooky trend for the sport where this guy still is the draw. McIlroy is a genius, but he doesn't bring eyeballs to the television set and casual viewers to the casual fans to the event. Last week in Phoenix, I was told that when the word came out that Tiger had committed to the event, that they had a record spike in ticket sales, and he ends up shooting 82 and missing the cut. Ryan, I'll get to your thoughts in a minute because you had this theory about this in the past. I can just tell it to you this way.
Like, what are people saying?
I'll tell you what's happening is that folks are starting to entertain the what-if thought, and that what-if thought is, what if it's just over? What if there's this combination of a body that continues to break down, a life that is now very fulfilled? I know that when I saw him at Stewart's service, what we talked about most was his children and about being a dad, and I know he loves that. And what people marvel about Nicklaus the most, looking back at his career, which is still the gold standard for major championships won, is that Nicklaus, in an age when private travel wasn't nearly as easy, Nicklaus would win an event, but he'd post up for his kids' games. He was there. He was present as a father, and he was still a killer on the golf course. Well, Tiger right now, his health is a problem, and the issue is that it continues to be a problem. And we keep hearing, oh, I'm good now. My body's sound. I'm right. I'm good. Everything's good. Everything's fine. And then it's this.
When did the back start to hurt?
In between suspensions, I guess when we had that break, it just never loosened back up again. Frustrating that it started shutting down like that. I was ready to go. I had a good warm-up session the first time around, and then we stood out here and I got cold, and everything started deactivating again. And it's frustrating that I just can't stay activated. It's just kind of where it is.
Did you consider not playing?
No.
There's just these buzzwords like deactivated or whatever, like there's some button you're supposed to push. And this is where I start wondering where the mental part is. And I can't even believe I'm saying that about this guy, Ryan, because when a lifetime ago before I came here, when I was at the Golf Channel, you're talking about 2000 was the year when the guy set scoring records in 3 consecutive majors. The idea that maybe he'd be fragile mentally, that his body would break down, which would cause him to then have a lack of confidence. On the Golf Channel, they're showing him on the range trying to figure out how to hit chips, and he's hitting it off the hosel, hitting ground balls. I mean, this is astonishing to witness, and I wonder how much is physical and then how much is a mental lack of belief in himself in a sport where it is absolutely essential.
Well, I can't believe we're here. I think I've said that a million times. We both agree on that. I don't want to be insensitive here, but I don't want to hear about the children thing because a lot of guys are still successful in their 30s and 40s that have kids. I mean, it doesn't mean they're all great parents, but, I mean, guys, you don't have to be this cyborg that has 0 relationships outside of everything else to still be competitive
I understand
at what
that.
you do.
I understand that.
But this is the guy that's down a goal in NHL hockey that hits reset. This is the guy that you play pickup hoops with that limps around a little bit after he screws up trying to finish at the rim, asking for a foul he shouldn't have gotten. This is all mental. In the past when I go, we're getting real dangerously close to I'm not good, so I don't want to play anymore. So now I'm going to kind of walk around with a limp, or I'm going to walk around with a stiff back. And the guy goes and has surgeries, and then I'm sitting here on the show feeling guilty, going, all right, apparently he's hurt. Apparently these are real injuries. But now he apparently is the most injured guy in sports. And I'm telling you, Scott, I'm at the point now, and I don't even like saying this because I think it's unfair being in this position, talking, a microphone in front of your face, but I can only tell you how I feel. And I feel like he is so spent upstairs with the lack of confidence that the minute he feels like he can have an out because of an injury, he's taking it, and that's what we've seen.
I haven't heard that from within the sport. All my friends that are sport fans, that are the fans of, I'm trying to say that are people that like golf. It wasn't that complicated. My buddies all just say, Van Pelt, that as soon as he hits it sideways, he's grabbing at something. And, Steve Sands from the Golf Channel will join us at the bottom of the hour. And Steve's relationships in the game with Tiger, his caddy Joey LaCava, with the rank and file, whether they're star players or, just rank and file pedestrian tour card-carrying members of the tour and caddies. Sands knows that better than anybody, so he can give us the best lay of the land of just what kind of conversations are people having about Woods at this point. Paul Azinger weighing in on the irony of a guy that was once the picture of fitness.
I think the real irony is that the most fit golfer in history is at the mercy of an unfit body. I'm not saying he's not cardiovascular, fit and all that and blah, 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 but his muscles are big and strong and tight. And when you take all that time off, you're probably going to have to loosen them back up. It's a different muscle. Golf's a ballistic game. It requires a lot of speed and power right there at the right moment.
And it also requires the confidence that you can pull off the shots. It's one thing, speaking to your point, Ryan, about is he just looking for an out? And that's where I can't, and again, I will admit to being prejudiced because of what I saw for so many years and then saw him fight so hard and grind so hard so often, to think that now he would look for that exit door. I have a really hard time buying that. I do. Just a final thought.
I'm glad you said that, though. I'm glad, because I don't like saying it.
I understand, and I think that's evident, because you're not just saying it to say it. And if it's true, I just saw too much before to ever think that the guy would wave the red flag or the white flag of surrender. I don't buy it. What's the most concerning, though, is it's not only is he withdrawing from tournaments, but when he's playing really poorly. And when he was, hitting chip shots, he can't hit a chip shot. I mean, he looks amateurish around the greens, which is astonishing to see. The crazy thing is he was even before he doubled the last hole that he played, and he's making these bombs from all over the green to kind of stay in there. And that's the kind of fight that he always used to talk about, grind it out when he didn't have his best. So I saw too much to think that now he just suddenly is so mentally weak that he's looking for an exit door. But the last 9 events he's played, he's finished 2 of them. So it's an astonishing 180. But I think, Ryan, you have company with people that believe and feel the same thing that you're feeling, whether they want to feel that way or not.
Okay, so you still believe he is capable of reaching the peaks that we expect from him. Not comparing him to the guy that just couldn't lose, basically won every 4th tournament he played in. That's never happening again. But you believe we can still see that peak Tiger.
Listen, he's 2 years removed from having won 5 tournaments.
Right. I mean, that goes unnoticed in this, as if he's been done since the return with all of his personal things. And as you point out accurately, and it's important to point it out all the time, the guy won Player of the Year.
He did. And I would point out that 2 years ago when Rory McIlroy switched clubs and had, personal issues with his fiancée that he broke it off with, Caroline Wozniacki, he walked off a golf course in a fit of rage and blamed it on a toothache, which he ended up admitting later was actually garbage. He just got to a place where he was frazzled, and he quit a tournament. And he was 23 or whatever he was at the time. And he subsequently has turned into this era's greatest player. So time is on Wood's side in a sense. You can still play very nicely into your mid-40s. Mickelson's in his mid-40s. You can still be competitive. I still believe he can be a winner on tour, and I've said it repeatedly, and I'll stand by it, that I think I don't think he's done winning major championships. Saying that today, though, suddenly requires a whole lot of blind faith, man, because I've seen nothing in the last year and change to make me believe that it's right around the corners. I just would remind people that the confidence wanes in this sport, and it did for McIlroy a couple of years ago, and he very quickly got things turned around. He's obviously much younger. I just can't believe that this is the way that this story ends.
SVP and Russillo.
Last night, and we'll get to the comments in a minute of Chris Paul, they got smashed. There was a bunch of technicals. Things got chippy. This is your boy, Ryan. This is your boy we're talking about here, Chris Paul.
Chris Paul is going to be one of my all-time favorite players to ever watch play this game. I absolutely love him. Last 10 years, he's been one of my favorite players of the last decade. And he's awesome. I don't want to hear it. He's an awesome point guard. People can knock him for the no rings thing. I mean, do you look at Garnett because of the Minnesota troubles and then say, well, Garnett never got out of Minnesota. He never got them deep in the playoffs except for 1 year, so you don't want him on your team? Well, that's ridiculous. And Zach Lowe, as he points out when talking about rings, there are only 5 players in the history of the NBA to play 1,000 or more playoff minutes that have a better efficiency rating than Chris Paul. The names are LeBron, MJ, Shaq, Hakeem, and George Mikan. Okay, and Chris Paul's 6th on that list. Chris Paul's hit huge shots in the playoffs, but nobody cares or they don't count because they weren't past the second round. So I don't want to hear it. The guy's awesome. But he complains to a level that is just unacceptable. He complains to a level when people tell me they don't like watching Chris Paul play. I agree with him. The way he kind of doctors some calls, it can be annoying. You can talk about him being competitive. I love that part of his toughness. But this Clippers team complains more than any team in the league. And Barkley was awesome last night on TNT, calling him out for it. Blake Griffin thinks everybody's out to get him. And Doc Rivers, who's my favorite guy ever as far as head coach is concerned, he's a nonstop complainer. And the Celtics actually used to, not get the benefit of the doubt. I felt like certain nights wouldn't get certain whistles because they were just so tired of his act from the bench. So last night for him to say, and we're going to get to the sound here in a bit, after so many technicals with Laura Holtkamp, who's the female official this season, one of them, to see her be questioned this way by Paul afterwards, I think it's a huge, huge mistake on him. And I want you to go ahead and play that sound there because, when I heard this, I immediately, watching the post game, I'm going, oh, we're in trouble here now.
Here's Chris Paul.
I think we got to show better composure, but at the same time, some of them was ridiculous. Like the tech that I got right there was ridiculous. I don't care what nobody say. I don't care what she say. That's terrible. Yeah. There's no way that can be a tech. We try to get the ball out fast every time down the court. Yeah. And when we did that, she said, and I said, why, and she gave me a tech. Okay. That's ridiculous. Yeah. If that's the case, then this might not be for her.
Can't say that.
What if you said, what if it was a rookie and it was a guy and you said maybe this might not be for him?
I know that's what people are going with, and I just think you got to be smarter than that. Chris Paul's smarter than that. I don't think that's what he was doing, honestly. The way he said it, I think he's got a problem here. And I don't think he was saying it because she's a first-year official. I think Lauren Holtkamp, we're starting to figure her out here. I know it's a national televised game, and there were technicals. But the Clippers can't sit there. There was one play, the second technical on Matt Barnes. The first one was kind of weak. Jamal Crawford, I think, is one of the Clippers that just runs into LeBron for no reason because they're down 20 and mad, and then Barnes goes to, finish him off physically. Like it was a second guy with the illegal tag into the ring, and then they're going to complain that they're getting called for techs. You could call a tech on Blake almost every time he tries to go to the rim based on the stare down. So I know that people are framing this as Chris Paul, no, he's just talking about a first-year official. This isn't for her. This isn't for him. But I don't know, man. That's just not the way I saw it. And I read all of the stuff, and I went back and watched everything leading up to that.
Michael Wilbon weighed in earlier today on SportsCenter about this very topic.
Is the simple use of a pronoun there something that really should hang Chris Paul? I'm not sure it is. There are some players and coaches and officials and executives in every sport who receive the benefit of the doubt, at least for a while, and there are some who don't, who haven't earned it. Chris Paul has. If it had been, this might not be for him. If we change that one word, what's the context there? How does it change it? Does it make it a gender issue if he's simply talking about someone who is female, who is her, versus a male ref who is him?
It's SVP and Russillo here on ESPN Radio. There's two different topics here, and specific to Paul, this becomes an area of discussion because it is her. And if I'm hearing you right, you feel like what he's saying is he's questioning her because it's a woman. Am I?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the discussion and that's the debate. And if it was a first-year ref, it was a guy. If you say, I don't know if this is for him, and then he kind of laughs, no one's talking about it today. So we are because of this. I do think that Paul's overall resume and who he is does earn him some benefit of the doubt. I also do think, as Simmons points out on Twitter today, and we've had this conversation about the Clippers, I think their overall resume as a team hurts them with officials because they cry a lot. And I think that hey, it's cool that we became the team of L.A. because the Lakers have fallen off. But what steps forward have they made as an organization? You make SportsCenter a lot because you're a fun highlight team. But what have you done collectively to think that you're supposed to get all this benefit of the doubt, especially when you complain all the time? I think they collectively are fighting that, which ultimately led to this conversation last night and all these texts.
What do you think? Do you think he made a mistake there in the way. Well, let me re-ask this. What do you think he was getting at there? Do you think he was just saying first year, or do you think he was saying it because she's a female?
I don't think that. I think we disagree there. I don't.
And the way he laughs afterwards, really?
I mean, it certainly is easier for you to stand where you are and say that you think it was than for me to say it wasn't. What I don't like about this is how it's just like race. If you said so, if you used something and you said it was a black guy, then there's problems. If you said it's a white guy, no one cares. If you say it's not for her, then red flags. Everyone's listening. Ear antennas are up. What did he mean? If it's a guy, this doesn't even raise to the level of bottom line discussion. It's not even out there. So maybe it's not for her. I mean, what's the rep that she's got? I mean, it's. Her story has been pretty well documented. The D-League, she was part of a television show where they were following her along as this was a dream. I mean, the league. Do people think that she can do it?
I really don't. I don't call a lot of guys to be like, "What do you think about all these officials?" I mean, look, Kenny Mauer.
Let me stop then. Let me stop. You would, I assume, if she was bad, you'd have heard it from someone. Not that you would have called to ask, but it would have come up in conversation.
I've never heard anything. But you know what?
Enough.
Look, there could be another. I'm sure there's another insider. Look, I shouldn't even say another insider. Although thanks to Hoops Hype for having my, cover of the page there.
What up, though?
Kenny Mauer on a bad call with his confidence in the way he carries him, that offends me more than anything. Okay, I mean now that Crawford isn't around. But Kenny Mauer was on that crew last night, and I think he's a terrible official. But I also think he's terrible because I just see him just be so defiant in a wrong call. So he actually could be good, but he just annoys me. So I just don't know enough about Lauren as an official to know if I think you got to be on the beat. I think you could be at games or really to understand this instead of a guy that's just on a league pass. But I think you are giving Paul an out here because. If you want to say first year, there's a different way to phrase that. And I think just watching it, and this is the only way I decipher it, so we're deciphering it differently here. But the way I see it, I think he's taking a shot at her. And I think it's a huge, huge mistake. I mean, look, there are times, man, I'll admit, okay, there are some gender things when I hear it, I go, come on, man. And I roll my eyes and go, that's not what this is. This isn't that kind of fight. Pick something else, okay? So I can be that guy sometimes. But when I saw this and I heard it and I went back, I went, You got to do a better job with this if you're Paul.
SVP and Russillo.
Steve Sands from the Golf Channel loves the club scene. He joins us via the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Steve, thanks for taking the time, man. I know you're not out on the road this week, but as I've explained to our listeners and our viewers, nobody knows the lay of the land on the tour as it relates to players, the caddies, and the folks that are out there like you do. What is the conversation folks are having about where Tiger is right now as he withdrew yesterday from yet another tournament?
Well, I think that most of the guys who I spoke to last week in Phoenix and also in the last 24 hours, texting back and forth on the tour, whether it's the players, the caddies, the officials, whoever it is, they just can't believe that this is still going on. They can't believe that every time he hits a bad shot, people are sensing that, here comes a WD, that he never acts like this whenever he's playing well. That it only happens when he is not playing well. And, to those people, I think, listen, you've got to take an athlete for what he's saying. And if he says he's not feeling well, or in this case his back or glutes or whatever the heck it is, are not activating, then you've got to take him for his word. And I think right now he's lost. And I think a lot of the guys who I've spoken to, the players, are saying that he's really lost mentally. And physically, but more on the mental side, but he just can't decide which way to go about his business on the golf course, and right now that's really messing him up.
We've seen that writing the obit for Woods can be a mistake, I mean, after the whole scandal thing, there were people that said he'll never come back, and obviously he had a great year a couple of years ago when he won 5 times and was Player of the Year. But are the guys that you're talking to throwing around the done word, like, you know what, this guy might be finished? Are you hearing that?
Yep. I am, surprisingly. I mean, I personally, not that my opinion matters and nobody's interested in what I have to say, but yeah, I mean, I think that I hear a lot of people saying it, and it shocks me. I do not think he's done. I think that there is, plenty of time. He's only 39, which if you're in the NFL or MLB or NHL or NBA, that's a little different. But in golf, you can go into your 40s. I mean, Vijay Singh won 20 times in a couple majors when he was 40 plus. So I think it could happen. But some of the guys are saying that this is the type of thing that you can't recover from, is what some of the guys are saying. And when they explain it that way, then, you're right. I mean, the putting yips is different. You can go to the long putter, which is now being changed January 1st, 2016. But for all these years, anybody who had problems, putting, they could change their grip, or they could change the type of putter they were using. Drivers, long iron, swings, all those kind of swing changes can be made. But when it comes to the mental aspect of getting beside a green and not being on it and having to either chip it or pitch it onto that green in a professional manner, not just like me and you, Scott, or Ryan for that matter, but for a professional on the PGA Tour, you've got to be able to get over that mental hurdle, and that's what they're saying. They're saying that if you can't get over that mental hurdle, then, perhaps maybe he is done.
Steve Sands of the Golf Channel. So is Tiger just the most hurt golfer that we've seen in the history of the sport?
You know what? I think he's the most hurt golfer I've ever seen. I mean, clearly other professional athletes in team sports, and all three of us are massive sports fans. I was trying to think, NBC the last 3 years, Golf Channel since 2001. Thank God Scott took that job at ESPN so we could slide in there. I cannot remember a golfer having so many injuries and having a golfer have so many injuries that don't seem consistent with golf. I mean, ACLs, Achilles heels, those kinds of things are not something you see or hear in golf on the PGA Tour level very often. Now, bad backs, we've heard those for years. Bad wrists, bad necks, those kinds of things. But he's hurt, Ryan. I mean, he is banged up. His body is much older than 39 years of age, and that, as we all know as sports fans, not just golf people, that's not a good thing when you're talking about the highest level of athletics.
I said for many years that if you asked me to make a bet on catching Jack, I'd have put every dollar I had, I'd have pushed it all in that he would. I'm well past thinking that that's going to happen. I still would put some cash forward that he'll win again and win a major again. But if you're standing there beside me, Steve, and we got to go halvesies on a bet, are you willing to join me in saying that you think that he can win another major?
Right now?
Yeah.
I'm with you. I've always said that, listen, he's going to get there, and I think he's going to surpass it and either retire at 19 or get to like 25 or 28 majors. But right now, Scott, I don't think there's any way you could possibly put any money on it. I just don't. I mean, it's so hard. These other guys are so good. I mean, think about this, for a second. The players who Tiger playing against right now, Rory McIlroy's never played in a major that Tiger has won. Okay?
Yep.
Never. So he doesn't carry around any type of scar tissue. He beat the brains out of Ernie Els and Phil Mickelson and Vijay Singh and David Duval, when Retief Goosen in the mid-2000s was winning 2 U.S. Opens. He demoralized fields. He just pummeled people. And whenever his name got on the leaderboard, everybody would think, oh, this is over. And we're talking Thursday and Friday, not just Sunday afternoon. So these guys today, none of them have been, beaten up by Tiger on the golf course, especially the best player in the world. And when you have those two things going against each other, the odds would be very long for Tiger to get one major, let alone 4 majors, to tie Jack Nicklaus right now.
We good for a steak in Augusta?
I'm sorry?
I said, are we good for a steak in Augusta? Can we put that down on the calendar?
Let me tell you something. The only thing that would be more shocking than us not having a steak in Augusta on a Wednesday night is you not being able to get a marker at the talking stick.
Yeah, what's that about?
Let me tell you something. Can I get one more thing in here?
Yeah.
We all go to dinner. It's great to see Ryan. It's great to see you. I get to meet Stanford Steve for the first time last week in Phoenix. And the first thing he looks at me and says is, wow, thought you were a little bit shorter. I'm surprised at how much taller you are than I realized. What's that all about?
I don't know. I guess he thought you're a little. I guess Steve thought you're a little dude.
That is not right. For all you big fellas out there listening, just like you, Scott, there's got to be a point guard to feed that ball into you, so I don't want to hear it.
Right on. Thanks for the time, and we'll see you down at Augusta, right, Steve?
All right, fellas, be good.
It's time for Scott Van Pelt's One Big Thing. One Big Thing. On ESPN Radio and ESPNRadio.com.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
It's time for Scott Van Pelt's One Big Thing. One Big Thing. On ESPN Radio and ESPNRadio.com.
One big thing is it's self-absorbed to talk about our business, and I don't always think you all are interested in doing it, but I think based on how much reaction there is to the fact that Reese has taken over for Chris Fowler on game day, I just wanted to share some thoughts here. To do what we do in this business, you need ego. Not arrogance. I can't stand arrogance, but I understand ego. You have to have ego to do what you do and to be willing to talk to an audience that can be millions and be calm and have some poise and have something to say. And I have ego, all right? I know that I can do whatever, TV, radio, I still wonder sometimes. But to be totally transparent here, and I hope this doesn't sound arrogant, I guess it's the ego part, there aren't a lot of folks in our business that I look at and I think that person's better than I am at doing this. I believe I can do my job. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. Very few that I think that person's just, I can't do that. Chris Fowler is one of those people. I think he's the best that I have ever seen in our business. What you have to grasp about his ability, and it's what has always blown me away, is that in the midst of absolute chaos, with thousands of hammered college kids screaming behind him for 3 hours, without a teleprompter to sort of hold your hand on the content you're supposed to deliver, the man never made a verbal misstep. Never. No missteps, ever. His gift with language and tone, I think, is unmatched. It would have been if he was in a sterile environment, but he was in the total opposite every week for, 20-some-odd years. And from time to time around here, people would say, oh, and Fowler even said it to me. He's like, hey, I'm not going to do this forever, someday. And I just said, what are you, nuts? I'm not trying to be the Gene Bartow to your John Wooden, all right? I don't want to follow that because no one's filling those shoes. If anyone can, it's Reese Davis. If you've listened to the show over the years, you know how much respect I have for the man, just the content of the man, the type of character we're talking about. And Reese is going to fill those shoes, and I don't think the show misses a beat. It'll be different. I think Reese is folksier, maybe a little bit more charm, a little more twinkle in the eye. Maybe not as edge, not as much of a hard edge as Chris sometimes brought to the proceedings. But if anybody can do it and fill those shoes that I think are the biggest in our business, I think Reese can, and I'm thrilled for us personally, selfishly I should say, because look, there's others out there that would have been thrilled to have Reese work for them. So I'm glad that this place could offer something. And you know what I think about game day. I try to weasel my way into that with a couple of times a year doing those bald man segments just because I wanted to have some role on what I think is the best show we do. Reese will continue to carry that torch and carry it well. But it's a steep climb, man, because Fowler, and I believe you feel similarly, Ryan, that guy, I don't know, man. He's just he's a different cut of cat to us.
Yeah, look, it's insane how good he is. And I think doing this, you appreciate. Like I sat next to Tirico on the flight back from Arizona. We were talking about guys we liked. Yeah, I mean, Tirico's a whole nother level of of the way he can do a million different things. You know what I mean? Whether it's studio, the play-by-play, how good that group has become. But like Gruden's pointing out things to me that Al Michaels does, and you're going, yeah, wow, you're right. And, when I listen to guys doing radio, and I'll go, you know what, that was really clever. I love what Greeny did there. And I'm able to probably catch on it a little bit earlier. But, look, the Fowler thing, being on the road with that crew for 6 years and seeing the way he worked, and I'd go up, I'd go up before I had to do my show to get a little juice, get the juice flowing, to watch those guys feed off of that crowd. And what I think makes Fowler the best is that he injects his personality into it. Agreed. And I know that something's happened with the media thing where, like, the media critics fall in love with the guys that are completely not part of the conversation. Like, oh, we love the guy that lays out. We love the guy that's and there's a role to be played there where you still have to be in control of everything, the point guard and all that stuff. But you know what? When you're somebody as smart as Chris, who is as passionate about college football as he is, and just as smart about the topic, I want to hear what you have to say too. And that, I think, is the backbone of that show. And I know Reese loves the sport that much, and I think that's why he's perfect for it, because I know he's going to inject some of that stuff in there. It's not just about teeing everybody up and getting out of the way. Like, I know we always praise those guys, but to take it to the next level, you have to figure out a way where you're not a dominating egomaniac that's also anchoring the show.
I totally agree that the idea of a host is that you're a point guard and you feed your guys the ball where they want it so that they can score. But great point guards are allowed to score too, and I always felt like the thing is with Chris is that anything he said would have been researched so thoroughly, and this is super inside the beltway, but these – you see the little index cards. Again, there's no teleprompter out there. What Fowler would do is
say that again, just so people understand what you're saying.
Well,
he's not reading any. He writes the whole show out till 5 in the morning
on little index cards, and very rarely would he even have to refer to them. And I've taken pride when we would do those shows from the Masters of the U.S. Open. It's the same thing. But I always thought, okay, I did that all right. Maybe I shot 70. Okay, Fowler's shooting 65, and he's doing it with 10,000 people screaming behind him. So there's, you always say, oh, you guys are just reading. He didn't read anything because there's nothing to read other than the cards that were in front of him. It was the safety net. If it was totally necessary, he'd refer to it. But the ability to commit to memory and to have absolute mastery of the content, and then to do it with this whole sophisticated level and the mastery again of the language. I just was blown away by that. And again, it's a small list, but of people that you'd think who could. Reese Davis could, and he can, and he will, and the show will be in great hands. But I just want to acknowledge what I think has been one of the great runs I've seen in our business, and it's what Fowler's done.
SVP and Russillo.
You're in Los Angeles still. Hopefully you can make it back. Who knows when the snow is arriving. Again, for those.
Are you serious?
Yeah, but listen, it's not bad enough that the wife's not leaving town and leaving me abandoned with my child. We're going to see if we can get a play date. Stanford Steve's talking about maybe coming up, but I need to get a 30-pack. I need to get a 30-pack for that. I'll do it. I mean, I'll go right to the packy and I will load up. I was just chucking out in the backyard in the snow. Can you imagine me and Stanford Steve with our daughters just running amok in a play date? Just smashing beers and watching college basketball.
Got a full slate of college hoops.
Yeah, man. Let's go. Let's make this happen. Russillo's out in L.A. We're good.
I just imagine with a 30-pack involved, I wonder who you get tired of first, your kid, his kid, or Steve.
I mean, imagine that. It probably won't happen. But it's fun to talk about. And everyone if you believe in the power of prayer, pray for me and my daughter so that she can make it through the weekend. Again, you're out in Los Angeles because you're on the Grantland Basketball Hour. And I could screw this up, so just explain to us the context where Derrick Rose wouldn't be one of the top 60 players being discussed.
Okay, Grantland Basketball Hour, Simmons, Jalen, and I, 8 Eastern on Sunday night, and the whole show is based on Simmons' annual trade value column. And it's not just ranking players, who's the best, 1 through 10 and on. He goes through 60 players, and everything is considered. Your age, your contract, upcoming free agency, health issues. He doesn't have Derrick Rose in his top 60. He believes there are 60 more assets more valuable in the league than Derrick Rose.
Okay, you remember when we did the MC bracket, and I didn't get involved because I said we'll be all right, and then we got to the end, then we were mad because somehow we missed the roots or whatever. There was
you were mad.
Yeah, true. I'll own that. I was mad. That was my fault. It's my fault both for being mad and for not being more involved in the process. But you get to the end of a list, and you can forget a name just because you forget it. I did that this year when I was in charge of rankings. One week I just left a team off because I forgot. Did he leave Rose off because he forgot, or did he willfully leave him off for some reason?
His argument is that he's not the same player, that he'll never be the same player, that he's owed about $42 million moving forward, and he plays out some scenarios the way he writes it out. You go, okay, I would put him in the top 60.
Yeah.
But I also think I'm going with an ownership element where owners love stars. Rose is still considered a star, and like a team like Denver if they had enough pieces. I don't even know that Chicago would trade him, okay? I don't think Chicago wants to give up on this guy, Chicago kid, and he's been all right. The problem is he hasn't been the same. He's not the same guy. He's shooting more threes than he ever has. He's making less than 30% of them. He's taken almost half as many free throws per game as he was taking during his prime. His assist numbers are down, and you watch him and you go, okay, am I supposed to give him a pass for this year because he's missed all of this time, and the fact he's only 26 years old, that in next season, that in 2015, the 16 season, we're going to see the Derrick Rose of old. So I would argue against Bill in saying there are 60 more valuable assets. It's only a 2-year contract, even though it's big-time money. But I think it's a more interesting conversation that you have to ask yourself. You go, based on what we've seen now from him this year, and that he can't seem to play a healthy stretch of games still, despite, he's been getting it going more and more, are you willing to accept or admit that he's never going to be the same guy?
We've talked a lot in the first hour about Tiger Woods and about injury, and this is not apples to apples, but there is something to be said for if you're trying to regain a level of confidence, and you have some sort of physical malady that prevents you from believing you can be what you were, then it can get in the way, obviously, of ever being similar to the player that made us all fall in love with you. And in Wood's case, look, he walked off the golf course again yesterday. I'm not comparing the two, but the man, Rose, missed the better part of 2 seasons. And when you watch him, throughout the season, it's felt like he's had the governor on and tried to just ease his way into being what he was. I understand why it would be difficult to do. I don't think there's any scenario where, even with money and not being who he was when he won the MVP, he's not one of the 60 best players in the league.
All right, but remember, it's about value.
I understand.
This is not about his ease. Look, you don't even need to say, is he one of the 60 best players? It is. All right, if you were the Knicks and you had Amari Stoudemire's contract that's about $20 million and expiring, but you're taking on $42 million for Derrick Rose moving forward, would you trade for Rose? Because that's one of the questions that Simmons brings up.
Well, the Knicks have got – how much bad money do the Knicks have on their books?
Bargnani and, at this point, Melo actually looks like bad money.
But if you could bring – if I'm the Knicks and I can bring in Rose, there's not one scenario where I'm not doing that.
Would you trade your unprotected first-round pick for him? Bargnani's up after the end of the year, so he's off the books, just like Amari.
Trade the unprotected for Rose.
Right. So you're shot at Jahlil Okafor or Kelly Oubre if you end up at 7 or 8.
Yes, I'd trade it. Yes, I'd trade it for Rose. For exactly the reason you just said. I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, I'm pick a kid. Gilbert won't be up there again because they won't be in the lottery, but it's just like I'm sitting there, and we've got the draft lottery, and then all of a sudden it's the Sacramento Kings logo, and I'm picking Oubre, like you just said. I don't know what I'm getting in the lottery. Let's make a deal. All right,
but do you know what you're getting in Derrick Rose?
I know the Knicks stink, and they can get a piece that makes them better today. Does he make them a championship contender? No. But is he better than anybody that's in the draft this year outside of Okafor? And even who knows what those guys are? I'll take what I know about Rose right now, even if he's lessened from what he was in his MVP season, and say that that's going to be better than whatever's coming out in the draft.
Okay, but for Rose at this point, and I'm really patience guy, right? Okay, we've seen 39 games from him that he's been able to play in. So, he's played the majority of the season. He is a three-point shoot first point guard who makes a pretty low percentage of them, who has said publicly he wants to protect himself, who wants to drive, it seems like, only in the fourth quarter of games. Like, the thing about Russell Westbrook is Russell Westbrook could have a major organ taken out of, and he'd ask you to duct tape it so he could play the Lakers that night, okay? And Rose, I understand being freaked out. I understand this being both legs. I know that he's young. I get all of those things, but we have to also evaluate the player that we see on the court. And I'm getting to the point where I go, I don't know if he's ever going to be that guy again. But I still think teams would trade for him, so I disagree with Bill on that one.
How many guys that are coming out this year in the draft do you think are capable of being as good in the next 2 or 3 years as Rose is right now?
As Rose is now?
Right now.
It's a terrible point guard draft. Moutier, the big kid who's playing overseas.
You can have him.
Is nice. Well, yeah, you're going off of him being a kid that you don't like, so not as a player.
That's not necessarily the case. I'm just saying that.
Why'd you yell who you can have him?
Because if I get Rose and his 19, 20 a game and whatever 5 assists, I don't think you're getting that out of him. You're not getting that
out of Moutier next year. No, of course not. I mean, I'm not going to win that conversation. But
I just think that. I mean, I think that when a guy's not seen as what he was, we're comparing a brand new off the lot car to the car where the rims are a little bit dinged up. You know what I mean? And you got the kid seat in the back, and you got mums everywhere.
Do you think Rose will ever be that guy again?
MVP guy?
Yeah.
No.
That's kind of where I'm going with this.
I think they're two different conversations, though. It's saying that you're not an MVP is different. Is still different than saying is a diminished Rose still better than whatever you're going to get if you're the Knicks and it's unprotected. I mean, unless I know it's Okafor and I don't, then I just can't play. Let's make a deal with that. I'll walk away with the cash in hand.
And you'll pay the $42 million with the chance that he's. I mean, they're 10 point guards ahead of him.
I just paid a king's ransom for a bunch of people that stink. And we have, 7, 8 wins, 9 wins, whatever it is. Stanford Steve, you're the Knicks fan. Would you?
I like the Pelicans.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot.
I don't like the Knicks anymore.
Would you trade Eric Gordon and another salary for Derrick Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Pelican?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Grantland Basketball Hour featuring Ryen Russillo airs Sunday night, 8 Eastern Time on ESPN.
SVP and Russillo.
Poor Shane Vareen. I should have warned him. It's our man over there is making it Club Life Friday. So the music, we normally go old school hip hop here, and you just walked in on a day when our guy's doing it his way. But you know what? I guess it's appropriate because you guys have been living in the fog of a party ever since Sunday night. And as you sat down here, you said it still feels like a dream. How do you describe this roller coaster the last week and a half?
Shoot. I mean, if we start from the game, then it's been a lot of up and down. First quarter kind of even, second quarter up, and then even, third quarter down, most of the fourth quarter down. Then we started coming back up, and I've just been going up ever since. It's been fun.
How do you best describe that emotion at the end of the game, as it looks like you're going to need to score in a short period of time, and then all of a sudden, oh my God, we won? What goes through your brain in those moments?
Yeah. Personally, I was thinking more or less of what do we need to run to get these 3 points. We're going to have probably about 20 seconds if we're lucky to move the ball, at least probably a good 40 to 50 yards. What do I need to do? To help us move the ball, and then Malcolm came through with that interception, and it was just pure joy. It even took me a minute to comprehend that he just intercepted the ball and the game was over. It was awesome.
Shane, if you were Marshawn Lynch this week, how would you feel?
I would still feel. I wouldn't feel great, but if I was him, I would feel like. He played as hard as he could. He doesn't control the play calling. He has to trust in the coaches, just like the coaches have to trust in him. I'm sure he's very upset about losing the game, as anybody would be. But I think you kind of gotta take the thought process a little differently than a normal public would.
Were you on the field for the final snap there when the fight broke out?
Yes, I was out there.
What were guys saying during that?
You couldn't really hear much because there's a lot of banging, a lot of throwing and slamming, and I think it was just a lot of frustration. It's a very intense game, and to come down to a play like that, part of me was expecting it, and the other part of me was kind of just buckling my chin strap, just getting ready for anything.
Yeah, and when the melee breaks out, you don't want to be the guy caught with his helmet off. Shane Vareen is our guest of the Patriots, and when the game plan comes out, it's obvious. You caught more passes than anybody in the game. It was clear that you and Julian were going to be the focus. How excited do you get knowing how big a role you're going to play in your team's ultimate success or failure?
Well, I knew coming into the game, I was going to be a big part of it. I didn't think it was going to be that big of a part of it. I didn't think, I'd be able to get that many throws. But, as the game kind of unveiled itself, I was able to get open and win the one-on-one matchups and able to find the soft spots in the zone defenses, and luckily Tom was able to find me.
Were you surprised that they let you release and have all those free releases underneath everything like they did?
Not entirely. We knew coming into the game that Seattle's not really a team that blitzes or brings a whole lot of pressure. They kind of stick to their guns. They play man, and they have a lot of confidence in their defense. So I knew I was going to be getting out. I didn't know exactly how many pass plays we'd be calling what the type of personnel and offense we would be, we'd be in most of the game. But as it came going, as it kept going, we kind of found our groove.
Can you allow yourself, Shane, in those moments of absolute joy after the pick, to imagine how badly it felt to be on the other sideline?
Yes, because when Kearse made that catch down the sideline, I went straight from 100 down to 0. And I remember sitting on the bench and I looked right at LG, and our jaws just dropped. He said, I said, and we can't lose like this again. Another miraculous catch after this game. So I'm sure it was tough for him. I'm sure it was tough. I would as a competitor, you hate to be in that situation.
Because the Seahawks, and some guys, not all of them, but we know Sherman's a loud guy, but he's a terrific player. Mm-hmm. Is there an extra part? We saw some of the stuff, that the signs and the sweatshirts during the parade in Boston, it seemed to be kind of going back at them. Was there an extra joy in this because you beat a Seahawks team?
We could have played, a Pop Warner team. If it was the Super Bowl, we probably would have celebrated the same way. I think what it is, it's competition at its finest. It's being in the moment. It's celebrating with your teammates. I don't think anything nothing was personal at the parade. I think it was more so for the fans and just enjoying ourselves. We played a great team in Seattle, and not a lot of people gave us much of a shot, and we were able to come out victorious. And I think that's what you saw on the parade. Just a lot of happy, happy guys that were winning their first Super Bowl, except for Tom and B, of course.
Are you guys at all worried that Gronk might retire and just go to GMA or the Today Show? He's been killing it.
He's been unstoppable. No, I think he'll come back, but it has crossed my mind. He's been everywhere, though, has he not?
I don't know how he's doing it, man. Look, I understand private aviation is something that, if you've got it like that, you can do it. But he seems to have, Brady put it, he's never had a bad day. And there's this joy that he lives with. He's hanging on floats. I don't know how. I told LG I thought he had maybe 35, 40 beers during the float, during the parade. What's he like to be around in day to day, week to week?
Exactly the same. He has not. I have not seen, like Brady said, I have not seen him have a bad day either. He is the same person day in, day out. That's Gronk. That's him. That's just who he is, and you gotta love him for it, because he doesn't change for anybody, and he loves. Everything about him.
Life.
Life. There you go. He loves it.
For Brady, now you've been around a couple years, and you see him every single year. And I know every year you want to be the same, but I imagine he's more motivated in certain spots. And after having some close calls, did you get a chance to talk with him at all about mentally, emotionally, what this meant for him to kind of bookend his career this way with another one after the close losses?
Yeah. I was able to talk to him a little bit. And he said it reminded him of the first time that he won the Super Bowl. He said that's probably the closest feeling, but still, he said this feeling is just, it doesn't get old. And I remember having a conversation with him a couple of nights ago, and I told him, I said, I never understood why you kept at it for this long, because it's not easy to play for Bill for a long time, and he's been doing it now 15 years. I was like, I never understood exactly why you stayed for so long until today. Until you feel the moment of winning and the parade and just being a champion. It's awesome.
We have 15 seconds. You have an idea of what it'll feel like, and then it happens. Is it better than you imagined?
10 times better than I ever imagined. 10 times better.
SVP and Russillo.